Let's get cracking here. It looks like we have James and Devin on the call, which is great. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to share. We had some exciting news from one of our members. Did their first triathlon on the weekend. They're from Hawaii and ended up winning their age group, which was so exciting, and gave us some positive reviews about the program they used, which was our intermediate 16-week program. And yeah, I was just so excited because, we've had those programs in there for quite a while now, and I know lots of people are using them, and we have had really positive feedback on those programs. And so, it's very exciting to see when you have a little result like that. Not only was it this person's first triathlon, but also, to win their age group was, I think, pretty special and maybe a bit surprising for that individual. So very cool. Okay, sorry, let's get cracking here. So can you guys still hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. James says, how was your weekend? My weekend was awesome. My son raced in the National Cyclocross Championships, which was very exciting. And lots of good racing through all the age groups. He's in the under 17 category. And so I spent my weekend really, running around a grassy, muddy field, cheering on my son and all his teammates and my friends that were doing the race. So I had a great weekend. Thank you for asking. James says, what is your favorite brand of running shoe? Well, that's a good question, James. At the moment, I don't have a favorite because no one's paying me to say which one is my favorite. I'm just kidding. I was a long time Adidas athlete. I raced for them for about 12 years. They treated me very well. And aside from the fact that I was sort of on their sponsored athlete roster, I did really love their shoes. I was mostly injury free. And, that's a big plus if you do as much mileage as I was doing. So I'm partial to that brand. But, now that I'm at least a decade removed from my own professional career, I think all of the brands do a really good job of having a diverse shoe lineup that sort of works for everybody now. I have a very wide foot, and so I prefer shoes that are wider in the toe box. I've had great luck with Saucony or Saucony in that regard. They have shoes with a width that's favorable for me, so I found that really great. But really, I think if you're shopping for shoes, the best thing you can do, and I've said this before, is get into a little local retailer, somebody with knowledgeable staff that has, a diverse lineup of shoes, not just one brand, but multiple brands, and really get them to look at your shoe and your running gait, or your foot and your running gait, and size you up properly. And they'll have a recommendation for you that's probably pretty spot on. So I think rather than getting fixed on a brand, what's better is to go in and actually seek the advice of a professional in that space and get the shoe that works for you. And it might surprise you. You might be a long time Nike, lover, and find out that, New Balance actually has a shoe that works best for you. So, don't be afraid to stray from the brand that maybe you've stuck with for many years in favor of having a shoe that's actually, the best fit for you. So, good question though. Devin says, what? Triathlon is not a tech expert. No, Triathlon Coach is not a tech expert. I'm doing my best. I'm actually getting better. And, I know how to open and close browsers on my Mac. I know how to open Instagram and make a post. I know how to like other people's posts. So I would say I'm pretty savvy. I mean, I don't know. Don't count me out here. But you know what? It's not the triathlon coach thing that's the problem. It's that I'm 50 years old. And so part of me is like getting to that point where I'm just old with some tech. And, but I'm also, exaggerating, I don't want, trope is the wrong word. I'm exaggerating that, whatever you call it. Just, I'm pretending that I'm old. I'm not actually that old, but I can say I'm old, and therefore I don't know how to use tech, and also I'm grouchy about tech because I'm just an old grouchy curmudgeon that thinks the world should go back to the way it was. I'm just kidding. No, I embrace tech. And in fact, our whole platform is based on, or not based on, but we use a platform called Circled, and we have this amazing content in there that everybody should be checking out. And without tech, we would not be able to do that. And to drive home the point, uh, the very nature of triathlon coaching has grown up using tech, using platforms like Training Peaks or Final Surge or Volt for our strength programming. So triathlon typically is a little more advanced, I would say, or we're willing to embrace new ideas. So, it would be misleading to say I'm anti-tech, because a lot of the way we deliver our programs and the way we analyze data, so we're getting data from Garmin watches and Apple watches and looking at the numbers, and so I think we're pretty tech savvy. I think, but yes, I don't know how to turn the camera on my Mac. So there you go. Um, Devin says, James says, I love the programs. Thanks, James. Yeah, I hope you're having success with them. They're really great. They follow a real simple platform. The foundation of knowledge there and expertise, it enables me to make them very simple, but really, really effective. And that's my goal with those programs. Devin says, if you live outside of a place like Hawaii, how do you prepare for the weather you'll be competing in? So I'll take that question to mean I'm going to compete in a hot climate, and I don't live in a hot climate. How do I prepare? And that's one of the challenges that we faced, especially as professional athletes, over and over again, especially living in a country like Canada. We do have the warm summer months. I spent many, many years in Ontario, in the eastern part of our country, or central/eastern. And we had very hot summers. So we would get very hot, muggy summers. And I found that preparation in those summers really prepared me well for anything. Because when you prepare in the heat, it's an added stressor, and it ultimately, I think, makes you stronger and better and fitter. Now, on the West Coast, we're not as lucky. On the West Coast, we have more consistent, I would call it, temperatures. So it never gets that cold in the winter, but it never gets that hot in the summer. And so when we prepare for the Hawaii Ironman World Championships here, it was very challenging. Often we would do a training camp in Hawaii several weeks out from the event itself to really let the body acclimate. But we'd also do silly little tricks. Like I remember doing, oh my gosh, long stationary trainer workouts in my garage with a whole bunch of heaters and a humidifier like right under my feet and my face. And I dress in all my warmest gear, and it was just awful. We do, 2, 3, 4 hours on the stationary trainer trying to get our core body temperature up as high as we can. I know the Olympic rowing team that's based in Victoria, they had a whole facility built. So they had this kind of, like a structure built where they had their ergs, so their stationary rowers, in a room that could be climate controlled. At our Pacific Institute for Sporting Excellence, I think that became the Canadian Institute for Sporting Excellence. We had a trailer that you could climate control, so it looked like a camping trailer, but inside it was all insulated properly, so they could like make the temperature, any temperature and humidity, anything you wanted. So at the highest levels, at the very highest levels, athletes will go to the location they're going to race in and get used to the climate and the temperature and everything there. The step down from that, but also a high level thing, would be to have a climate controlled room that you're able to manage. But that can get pretty spendy. Spendy is another fancy word for pricey. um, and then the step down from that, which is what most of us would do, is like go into our bathroom, turn the hot shower on, so we got a whole bunch of humidity in there, and then just like hammer out 3 or 4 hours on the trainer and sweat. And that was probably the most unsophisticated way to go about it. So yes, we were mindful of the climates we had to go into, and we would do everything in our power to try and replicate that climate so that our bodies would adapt. Because if you don't, you run into real problems. I personally found it much easier to be prepared for heat, but have the temperatures cooler, than to not be prepared for heat and have the temperatures hot. If the temperatures were hot and I wasn't ready, it was just a massive fail. It was awful. So it's a great question, though, and maybe even worthy of a blog post at the Endurance Hub community, which you should be checking out because our blogs are totally awesome. Okay, James, sounds fun. James has a question. What do you miss most about being a pro athlete? Yeah, honestly, the thing I miss the most is actually being that fit. When I was as fit as I ever was for this sport, I felt a sense of invincibility, which is naive because, of course, we all can run into problems with injury or whatever. It's more that I could go do any type of aerobic activity with anybody at any time and have zero issues. Like, you wanted me to go hike for 8 hours with a bunch of friends with a backpack on my back? No problem. Strongest guy out there. I'll go for days like that. You want to go running? No problem. You want to go cross country skiing? No problem. So I miss being that fit. Now, I have hung on to my fitness, and it's been like, I'm still very, very fit as in relation to probably most of the people my age, but the ability to go hammer out 3 hours on a bike really hard is definitely not in my wheelhouse anymore. So I think that's probably the thing I miss the most. I do miss, it'd be naive or not naive. It'd be misleading to say I don't miss a little bit of the attention you get when you're a pro athlete. That sounds a bit shallow and frivolous, but really, you kind of, people know who you are, and maybe you're in magazine ads, or maybe there's a poster of you, and that all sounds, again, very shallow and frivolous, but there's a part of the ego that is kind of likes that. It's kind of a fun way to exist for a bit when you go to, our small little world of triathlon. I could go to most events and people would recognize me and know who I was. And as I said, it would be misleading to say that I didn't like that a little bit. As I get older, I realize that I don't necessarily need that to feel good about myself. But back then I probably did a little bit. If I'm being fully honest, it felt good. It felt good for people to know who I was, and to have a little bit of a tiny, tiny, tiny sliver of fame in my tiny, tiny little world of triathlon, which is tiny, 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 but still fun nonetheless. So, James says, I love your TikToks. Thanks, James. As a 50-year-old, what is this, a sanctogenarian or whatever you'd call me? TikTok was a tough thing for me to do, but I know the kids love it. It was very hard to it's hard to post stuff on the social media when you're uh in my generation, because it's not a natural space for us, and it feels weird. It feels kind of a little self-indulgent and all those things. But ultimately, if we're getting some information out to people that's useful, then thumbs up to that, and I can wrap my head around that part of it. So I appreciate the love for our TikToks. James says, would you ever host a pre-workout warm-up class? Maybe something we could do at home before a run or a bike. Yeah, I like that. Let's do that. Let's get it on the video. Let's get it on our circle community here, and most importantly, let's get it on the TikTok. But yeah, for sure. Um, for things like running and biking, the warm up typically involves running and biking. So, the best way to warm up, in my opinion, for a run or a bike is to do, if you're going to run, maybe you walk for 5 minutes and then you run really, 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 really easy for 10 or 15 minutes. Same with the bike, you bike 10, 15, 20, even 30 minutes really, really easy at the start. And that's the best way to warm up those muscles. But yes, I mean, you can do a pre-run or bike routine that involves a little bit of easy warm up, get your core temperature up, maybe some foam rolling, maybe some mobility work for the muscles that you're going to use. Maybe some dynamic stretching like you would do on the pool deck before a swim. So yeah, we can put together maybe a 5 or 10 minute little routine that people can do at home. And I've found this, especially as I get a bit older, that little 5 to 10 minutes I spend before I even bike or run is actually pretty important now. Often I'll roll my lower back out because it kind of just feels good to get those muscles in that area warmed up and activated, get some blood flow in there. I guess there's always blood flow in there, or you'd kind of die, but you know what I mean. It kind of enhances that a little bit. So yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thanks, James. We should get that out there for sure. Devin says, did you get any endorsements or sponsorships, or did you do any triathlon modeling? Well, of course, yeah. I mean, that was one of the fun things about being a pro as well. I didn't really mention. Yes, I had amazing sponsors through my whole career. I mentioned that I was with Adidas for about 12 years. I was paid; they would pay me money. The product allotment was like Christmas every few weeks. I mean, I would get. I don't even think I had a budget. They just sent stuff, like every bit of clothing you can imagine, shoes, 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 shoes. I mean, they were so generous, and I think part of it is they wanted you wearing Adidas whenever possible. So whether it was at press conferences or I had Adidas golf shoes. I had sports that weren't even related to me. I would order. I could order kind of whatever I wanted, and that was really fun. But it was smart on their part because no matter where I was or what I was doing, I was in Adidas stuff, and I still have a lot of the old kind of vintage stuff. I remember. They brought back a lot of their Adidas classic stuff with the three stripes, and I still have. I didn't get rid of any of those things because they're classics. They kind of last forever. Um, but yeah, we would get financial help from them, and there'd be bonuses if I did races well. I would get more money, so that was helpful. Always with a bike company. The bike companies were great as well. I was with Shimano, so that help with wheels and Gruppos and sunglass companies. Yeah, I mean that's a really fun part of about being a pro, and you know I made it to a high level, but certainly not the highest level. Like there's the world champions and stuff in our sport. They make really decent money now, and in terms of like getting free product, I don't think anybody ever gets tired of that. Even if you're, Lucy Charles, who just won the Ironman World Championships, she probably gets so much free stuff. But I bet every time it comes, she's like, "Oh, these new Oakleys are really cool," or "These new shoes are really cool." I don't think that part of it ever gets old. It's sort of like being a kid and having an endless Christmas. Now, yeah, it's a little over consumptive. Back in the day, we didn't think too much about that. Now, I think we're a little more mindful of the potential waste. But as a pro athlete, you're using stuff like 5-6 hours a day, so you do need more than the average person. But yeah, certainly the sponsorship side of it was really fun. Uh, and it was everything from bikes to shoes to sunglasses to nutrition companies. And, they really, and it was in their interest too to have you using the product and talking about it and telling people about it. And for the most part, all the products that I endorsed in the time, I really believed in. They helped me and I genuinely used them, when I was competing and racing. So I wasn't like making up that I use these glasses. I was actually using them and I loved them and they were great, and it was really helpful. So anyway, that's a good question. It's fun to reminisce about that, talk about that. It seems like a long time ago. Um, now that I think about it, that's one of the things I miss most about being a pro is all the free stuff. Gosh, when you have to go out and buy your first bike or even your first pair of running shoes, you're like, oh my gosh, this stuff's expensive. um, anyway, good questions. It looks like that might be it for today. If anybody, I'll maybe give it 30 more seconds here. If anybody has another one they want to pop in there, I'll happily answer. Otherwise, as always, I just love the questions that get thrown out here, and I'm grateful when people attend. I really apologize that the video's not working today. I'll have to figure it out. It must be something to do with my Mac computer because the settings on this actual video thing seem to indicate everything's fine. So I'm gonna have to recruit one of my tech friends and get this sorted. But apologize, you can't see my face. I don't like look particularly awesome today anyway, but my voice feels strong and good today. Oh, Devin has one more. Do you know of any good Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals for gear? Not off the top of my head, but gosh, I bet it's not that hard to find. My guess is most of the companies in their online, sales channels probably have some kind of deals that you can get. And then also the big retailers are always worth checking out as well. I would check out even your local retailers. Like everybody this time of year is trying to compete with the sales, so I think there's probably no shortage of stuff you can find. And but if I find any that look particularly inviting for the group, I'll post them in the coach discussion area, and maybe you can snag a good deal or something like that. Um, Devin says, "Thanks, Jasper. Always great." Yeah, thanks, Devin. Devin is a regular here, and I really appreciate you jumping in every week. And yeah, and for those listening, I know actually I've heard a lot of people listen to the recorded version of these. You can always find those in the back end of the My Endurance Hub space there in the Circle app, and lots of good content. Maybe this becomes like your podcast, especially without my face in here now. Maybe people like that better. Maybe our listenership will go way up now that you can't see my face. That would be very telling. I don't know how I'd feel about that. On the one hand, listenership up. On the other hand, because you can't see me. I don't know. I have to really chew on that one. It's been great, you guys. Thank you so much again for coming. And same time, same place next week. And have a great week of training. Happy training, everybody. And we'll talk to you soon.